Today I bring you a real and moving story of overcoming and transformation. In this account, Caius Wentworth shares how a near-death experience not only saved his life, but revealed something even deeper, a terrifying prophecy about humanity's future. Before we start, if you like this type of content and want to know more about supernatural experiences and spiritual revelations, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our stories. Let's dive into this surprising story. Hello, my name is Caius Wentworth. I never thought I would be here telling this story, but life has these things, right? It takes you by surprise when you least expect it. I'm an ordinary guy, you know. I was born and raised in Prescott Valley, Arizona. I've always been one of those who follow the flow of life. School, college, marriage, work. Nothing extraordinary. At least that's how I saw myself until that fateful night that changed everything. I had just graduated from college when I married Rebecca, my longtime girlfriend. We moved to Flagstaff, her hometown, and for a while, it seemed like everything was falling into place perfectly. We had a modest house. I got a job at a consulting company. You know that feeling when you're finally on the right path? That's exactly how I felt. But life has a funny way of turning the tables, doesn't it? Small arguments about who should do the dishes or what color to choose for the curtains started to turn into bigger fights. Suddenly, it seemed like Rebecca and I couldn't communicate anymore. The silence between us grew every day. 2 years after saying "I do" at the altar, we were signing divorce papers. It was a hard blow, you know? Not just because I still loved her, but because I felt like I had failed in every area of my life. I returned to my parents' house in Prescott Valley, feeling completely lost. The days passed, and I could barely get out of bed. My mind was dominated by an oppressive feeling of failure. After a few months in this limbo, my father, Henry, got me a job at a local car factory. It wasn't exactly what I had dreamed of for my life, but it was better than sitting still. The work was exhausting, operating machines for hours on end. I would come home completely exhausted, both physically and emotionally. It was in this context that everything happened. One night, after a particularly bad day at work where I made a mistake that almost cost me my job, I just couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a bottle of vodka, got in my car, and drove to a secluded lake in the mountains. Sitting on the bank, drinking and thinking about how my life had fallen apart, the idea of ending it all started to seem like the only way out. And it was there, in that moment of total despair, that my life changed forever. But not in the way I expected. What happened next is something I'm still trying to fully understand, even after all these years. It's a story that needs to be told, not because I'm special, but because what I saw and experienced could have implications for all of us. That night at the lake, I was completely overcome with despair. The dark, calm surface of the water seemed to call to me, promising an end to all the pain I was feeling. Without thinking twice, I got up and dove into the cold water. The instant my body touched the icy water, it was as if I had been struck by lightning. The shock of the cold sobered me up instantly, but it was too late. I was too weak to swim back to shore. I felt panic taking over me as I struggled to keep my head above water. Little by little, my strength was fading. My movements slowed, and I began to sink. The water entered my lungs and the pain was indescribable. I remember thinking, is this how it's going to end? I closed my eyes, waiting for the end. But then, something strange happened. The pain suddenly disappeared. I opened my eyes and saw myself floating above the lake. I could see my body still in the water, but somehow I was out of it. At first, I was in shock. How was this possible? Was I dead? Was it all a hallucination? Before I could process what was happening, I noticed a bright light behind me. It was brighter than anything I'd ever seen, but somehow it didn't hurt my eyes. The light emanated a comforting warmth, like a loving embrace. Suddenly, I felt a presence next to me. When I turned around, I saw a radiant figure that I can only describe as an angel. It wasn't like the representations we see in paintings or films. It was an entity of pure light, vaguely humanoid in shape, but made of scintillating energy. The angel spoke to me, but not with words. It was more like his thoughts flowed directly into my mind. "You are not alone," said the soft voice. "I'm here to help." At that moment, I felt like I was being pulled away from the lake. My consciousness was dragged through a dark tunnel at incredible speed. It was like being on a cosmic roller coaster. All around me, I saw flashes of light and heard indescribable sounds. The tunnel seemed endless, and I began to hear distant screams that made my soul shudder. Fear began to take hold of me again, but the presence of the angel at my side kept me calm. When I finally stopped falling, I found myself in a place that defies earthly description. It was a realm of darkness and fire, populated by horrible creatures and souls in agony. The smell of burning flesh and decay was unbearable. The angel, still at my side, explained, "This is one of many possible fates for those who turn away from the light. But you are here as a witness not to suffer." As I watched that terrifying scene, the angel held my hand, guiding me through that hellish place. I saw people in constant torment, their skin melting and their souls screaming for help. It was a sight that will be etched in my memory forever. But what came next was even more disturbing and would completely change my perspective on life and the destiny of humanity. While we were still in that realm of darkness and suffering, the scenery around us began to change. Images of tormented souls gave way to visions of our own world, but not as I knew it. I saw cities in ruins, once imposing skyscrapers reduced to smoking rubble. Armies marched through the streets, their faces covered by gas masks. The sky was dark, covered in a thick layer of smoke and ash. Explosions devastated entire nations, leaving behind only craters and destruction. I saw people fleeing in panic, carrying what little they could save. Refugee camps stretched as far as the eye could see, full of desperate, hungry people. The angel, his voice echoing in my mind, said, "The world is on the brink of a great crisis. What you are seeing is the prelude to a global conflict that will bring destruction but also purification." The images continued to flash before my eyes, each one more terrifying than the last. I saw oceans rising and swallowing entire coastal cities. Storms of unprecedented intensity swept across continents. Earthquakes split the earth in half, swallowing everything in its path. "A third world war is about to happen," continued the angel. "Humanity will go through moments of extreme pain before being reborn into a new era." I wanted to look away, deny what I was seeing, but something inside me knew it was important to witness it all. The angel explained that this chaos was part of a necessary change, a planetary rebirth that would take place after a period of suffering. "But why?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Why does all this need to happen?" "Humanity has reached a critical point in its evolution," replied the angel. "The choices made in the coming decades will determine not only the future of the planet, but the destiny of the souls that inhabit it." The visions continued, showing me not only the destruction, but also what would come after. I saw people coming together amidst the ruins, rebuilding not only their cities, but also their societies. I saw a new way of living emerging, more harmonious with nature and the spirit. "This is just one of many possible futures," said the angel. "The actions of each individual, the choices made day after day, shape the collective destiny of humanity." I was stunned, trying to process everything I had seen. Part of me wanted to believe it was just a nightmare, that none of it was real. But deep down, I knew I was witnessing something beyond my earthly understanding. "What's my role in all of this?" I asked, feeling the weight of responsibility fall on my shoulders. "You are a witness," replied the angel. "Your task is to share what you have seen, to prepare those who are willing to listen. The future is not written in stone, but the time for change is running out." With those words, I felt like I was being pulled again. The apocalyptic visions disappeared, and I found myself immersed in a bright, welcoming light. After witnessing the disturbing visions of Earth's future, I was suddenly enveloped in a warm, golden light. The feeling of fear and despair that accompanied me was instantly replaced by a deep and indescribable peace. I found myself in front of an immense golden gate, whose beauty defied any earthly description. Every detail was intricate and perfect, radiating a light of its own that seemed alive. The angel accompanying me said, "This is the threshold of the celestial kingdom, but your journey is not yet over. You cannot enter completely, but you will be allowed a glimpse." When the gates opened, I was flooded with a feeling of unconditional love so intense that I felt completely overwhelmed. It was as if every atom of my being was being filled with pure, loving energy. The scenery that unfolded before me was of indescribable beauty. There were lush green fields that stretched as far as the eye could see, with vibrantly colored flowers that I had never seen before. The sky was a deep, crystal-clear blue, with clouds that seemed to be made of golden light. In the distance, I saw magnificent structures that seemed to be made of crystal and light. They were not exactly buildings as we know them, but rather fluid architectural forms that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The most surprising thing, however, were the people, or rather the souls, that inhabited this place. They radiated their own light, each with a unique and beautiful vibration. There was no distinction of race, age, or gender as we know it on Earth. They were pure essence, pure love. As I watched in amazement, I noticed a group of souls approaching. As they got closer, I recognized them. They were my great-grandparents and uncles who had passed away years ago. My great-grandfather Henry was the first to speak. His voice was like music, resonating not in my ears, but directly in my soul. "Caius, my dear, what a joy to see you. But you shouldn't be here yet." My great-grandmother, Eleanor, enveloped me in a hug that seemed to contain all the love in the universe. "You still have a lot to do, dear. Your journey on Earth is far from over." Tears of joy and sadness ran down my face. I wanted to stay there forever, surrounded by that unconditional love. But something inside me knew they were right. My Uncle Jack, who was always the joker in the family, smiled and said, "Don't worry, kid. We'll be here waiting for you when the time is right. But right now, you have an important job to do." They told me about the peace they had found, about how everything made sense now. They talked about the importance of living with purpose and compassion, of making every moment count. "Remember, Caius," said my great-grandmother, "the love you feel here, you can take back to Earth. It is the most powerful force in the universe." As we talked, I realized that time seemed to not exist in that place. It could have been minutes or years, I couldn't say. But eventually, I felt it was time to leave. My family members hugged me one last time, filling me with love and courage for the journey that lay ahead. The angel guiding me gently touched my shoulder, indicating that it was time to move on. I looked one last time at that realm of light and love, recording every detail in my memory. I knew that that vision would accompany me for the rest of my earthly life, giving me strength in the difficult moments that were to come. With a heart full of gratitude and a new understanding of the meaning of existence, I prepared for the next stage of my spiritual journey. Leaving the celestial realm was one of the hardest things I have ever experienced. Part of me desperately wanted to stay, to immerse myself in that unconditional love forever. But the angel guiding me made it clear that my journey was not complete. We move away from the golden gates and find ourselves in a different space. It was neither heaven nor earth, but a place in between, a realm of pure energy and knowledge. The angel turned to me, his glowing form pulsing with ancient wisdom. "Caius," he began, his voice resonating in my mind, "you were brought here not just to witness, but to learn. The lessons you take back to the physical world could change not only your life, but the lives of those around you." What followed was a series of revelations that challenged everything I thought I knew about life, death, and the universe. The angel showed me how every thought, every action, every choice we make creates waves of energy that spread throughout the cosmos. "You humans are much more powerful than you realize," the angel explained. "Every act of kindness, every word of love, every gesture of compassion feeds the light of the universe. Likewise, every act of hate, every word of anger, every gesture of selfishness feeds the darkness. I saw before me a complex web of light connecting all souls, all living beings, even the stars and planets. I then understood that we are all interconnected, that what affects one affects us all. The angel continued, "Life on earth is a school, Caius. Every challenge, every pain, every joy is an opportunity for growth. There are no mistakes, only lessons." He showed me how souls choose their earthly lives, selecting the challenges they will face to evolve. I saw my own soul making these choices before I was born, and I understood that my life, with all its difficulties, was exactly what I needed to grow. "But what about free will?" I asked, confused. "Free will is the most powerful tool you have," replied the angel. "You choose the general path before you are born, but the daily decisions, the reactions to each situation, are all yours. That is where the true potential for growth lies." The angel then showed me something that left me deeply impacted: the effect of our actions not only in this life but in future lives. I saw how one act of kindness could set off a chain of positive events that would span generations. "Always remember, Caius," said the angel, "love is the most powerful force in the universe. It is what moves the stars, what heals wounds, what transcends even death." I learned about the importance of forgiveness, not just for others, but for ourselves. I saw how resentment and guilt are weights that drag our souls down, preventing our spiritual growth. The angel taught me about the illusion of time, showing me how past, present, and future exist simultaneously on a higher plane. I understood that each moment is eternal, and that we can access the wisdom of all our past and future lives if we learn to tune in to our consciousness. Finally, the angel spoke about each soul's mission. Each of you has a unique purpose, a special gift to share with the world. Your task is to discover that gift and use it to elevate not only yourself, but to all humanity. When the lessons ended, I felt transformed. It was as if he had lived 1,000 lives in an instant, absorbing the wisdom of the centuries. I knew I would return to Earth forever changed, with a new understanding of my place in the universe and the importance of every choice I make. The angel smiled, if a being of pure light can smile, and said, "You are ready for the next stage of your journey, Caius. Remember everything you have learned here, for these lessons will be your compass in times to come. Difficult times to come." With those words, I once again felt that sensation of movement, as if I were being pulled through the fabric of the universe itself. I knew I was returning to the physical world, but now I carried with me knowledge that transcended ordinary human understanding. The transition back into the physical world was as intense as leaving. I felt like I was being compressed, all that vastness of knowledge and experience being forced back into the confines of my mortal body. It was an uncomfortable, almost painful feeling. Suddenly, my lungs filled with air and I coughed violently, expelling the water I had swallowed. I opened my eyes and found myself lying on the shore of the lake, soaking wet and shivering from the cold. The night was silent except for the sound of the water lapping gently against the shore and my labored breathing. For a moment, I stood there, stunned, trying to process everything that had happened. Had it been real, or was it just a hallucination caused by lack of oxygen? But the clarity of the memories, the intensity of the emotions that still reverberated through me, all of this told me that what I had experienced was more real than anything I had ever experienced. Slowly, I sat up. I looked at my hands, at my body, marveling at the complexity of the physical form we inhabit. Every breath felt like a miracle now. I looked up at the starry sky above, remembering the vastness of the universe I had glimpsed. With difficulty, I got up. My legs were wobbly and my whole body hurt. I staggered to my car, grateful I had left the keys in my pocket. I turned the heater on high and sat there for a long time, letting the heat slowly penetrate my chilled bones. As I drove back home, my mind was in a whirl. How could I go back to my normal life after what I had experienced? How could I explain to people what had happened? Would anyone believe me? I arrived home just before dawn. My parents were still sleeping, oblivious to the fact that their son had just returned from a journey beyond death. I took a hot shower, changed my clothes, and sat in the kitchen, a steaming cup of coffee in my shaking hands. When my parents woke up and found me there, they were surprised. My mother immediately noticed something was different. "Caius, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I almost laughed at the irony of that sentence. "I'm fine, Mom," I replied. "I just had a rough night." In the days that followed, I tried to get back to my normal routine. I went to work, talked to friends, did everyday tasks, but nothing felt the same. Every interaction, every moment, was imbued with new meaning. I saw the light in every person I met, reminding me how connected we all are. I started making changes in my life. I stopped drinking completely. I began meditating, trying to recapture that sense of peace and connection I had experienced. I looked for ways to help others, to spread some of that unconditional love I had felt. But I also struggled with the weight of the knowledge I had gained. The visions of the future that the angel had shown me weighed heavily on my mind. How could I live my life knowing what was coming? How could I warn people without seeming crazy? I decided to start slowly. I started talking to close friends and family about my experience. Some were skeptical, others fascinated. Some even shared their own spiritual experiences that they had never had the courage to share before. Little by little, I found my way in this new reality. The near-death experience hadn't just changed my perspective on life and death. It had changed my fundamental understanding of what it means to be human, our place in the universe, and the responsibility each of us has to make a difference in the world. And so, day after day, I continued my journey, carrying with me the lessons from beyond and the certainty that every moment, every choice is an opportunity to grow, to love, and to illuminate the world around me. In the months following my near-death experience, I underwent a profound internal transformation. It was as if every aspect of my life was being reevaluated and rebuilt in light of what I had learned in the afterlife. The first big change was in my perspective on work. I realized that I could no longer continue in a job that didn't give me satisfaction or contribute in some positive way to the world. After much reflection, I made the decision to leave my job at the factory. It was a scary decision. After all, I had bills to pay and responsibilities to fulfill. But something inside me, that inner voice that now seemed much clearer and stronger, told me it was the right path to follow. I started exploring different areas where I could use my skills to help others. I ended up volunteering at a local homeless shelter. The work was challenging, often emotionally exhausting, but incredibly rewarding. Every smile I could elicit, every small act of kindness I could perform, reminded me of the lessons I had learned about the power of love and compassion. My relationships have also undergone significant changes. I began to see each interaction as an opportunity for growth and learning. I forgave people I had resented for years, including my ex-wife Rebecca. I contacted her, and we had a heartfelt and healing conversation that brought peace to both of us. My relationship with my parents deepened. Although initially skeptical about my experience, they noticed the positive change in me and became more open to hearing about what I had experienced. We spent long nights talking about life, death, spirituality, and the meaning of it all. I began meditating regularly, seeking to reconnect with that sense of peace and unity I had experienced in the afterlife. It wasn't always easy. My mind would often wander, preoccupied with everyday problems or the disturbing visions of the future that the angel had shown me. But with practice and patience, I learned to quiet my mind and tune in to a higher consciousness. One of the most important lessons I learned was the importance of living in the present. Despite the knowledge I had about possible future events, I understood that my task was not to constantly worry about what might happen, but rather to do the best I could with every moment I was given. I began to notice synchronicities in my life, meaningful coincidences that seemed to guide me in a certain direction. I met the right people at the right time, or heard exactly the words I needed when I needed guidance most. It was as if the universe was conspiring to help me fulfill my purpose, whatever that may be. Little by little, I discovered what that purpose was. I realized that my near-death experience wasn't just for me. It was something I should share with others. Not to convince or convert them, but to offer a different perspective, a hope that there is more to existence than what we can see and touch. I started writing about my experience. At first, they were just personal notes, a way of processing everything that had happened. But I soon realized that these words could help others who were going through difficult times or questioning the meaning of life. I created a small support group for people who had gone through similar experiences or were dealing with deep spiritual issues. There weren't many of us, but our weekly meetings became a beacon of light and hope for us all. As I shared my story and the lessons I had learned, I noticed people responding in surprising ways. Some were skeptical, of course, but many found comfort and inspiration in my words. I received messages from people saying that my story had helped them get through difficult times or find new meaning in their lives. I then realized that perhaps this was my purpose, to be a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds, to share the message of love and unity that I had received, and to help people find light in their darkest moments. It wasn't an easy path. There were days when I doubted myself, when the weight of knowledge I carried felt overwhelming. But then I remembered the angel's words. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. And with that memory, I found the strength to continue. My life had completely transformed. He was no longer the lost and desperate man who had dived into that lake. Now I was someone with a purpose, someone who understood the value of every moment and the power of every choice. And although the future was still uncertain, I faced each day with new courage and an unshakable faith in the power of love to transform lives and, who knows, even change the destiny of the world. Despite the profound transformation I experienced following my near-death experience, the path was not always easy or clear. There were moments of intense doubt, periods when I questioned everything I had experienced and learned. One of the biggest challenges I faced was dealing with the disbelief of those around me. While some friends and family were receptive to my story, others reacted with skepticism or even hostility. "You must have had a hallucination," some said. "That's just your brain reacting to the lack of oxygen," others insisted. These reactions made me question my own sanity at times. Had I really experienced all that? Or was it just my mind creating an elaborate narrative to deal with a traumatic moment? I remember one particularly difficult night, about 6 months after my experience. I was sitting alone at home, rereading my notes about what I had experienced in the afterlife. Suddenly I was overcome by a wave of doubt so intense it left me physically nauseous. What if everything was a lie? What if I was deceiving myself and others? That night, I cried like I hadn't cried since I was a child. I felt as if the ground had been ripped out from under my feet. All the certainty and purpose I had found seemed to be falling apart. It was in this moment of profound crisis that I had an experience that I can only describe as a spiritual confirmation. As I sat there, sunk in doubt and despair, I suddenly felt a familiar presence. I saw nothing with my physical eyes, but in my heart, I felt the same loving, comforting energy that I had experienced during my journey to the afterlife. A voice, not audible but clear in my mind, said, "Remember, Caius, doubt is part of the journey. It is through questioning that you grow. Trust what you know in your heart." That experience brought me back to the center. I realized that doubt was not something to be feared or avoided, but a natural and necessary part of spiritual growth. I began to see my moments of uncertainty not as failures, but as opportunities to deepen my understanding and strengthen my faith. Another significant challenge was dealing with the knowledge of possible future catastrophes that the angel had shown me. There were days when I woke up in a panic, fearing that the global conflict I had envisioned could begin at any moment. How could I live a normal life carrying this weight? I learned over time to find a balance. I understood that my role was not to predict or prevent these events, but rather to do what I could, in the here and now, to spread light and love. I focused on small daily acts of kindness and compassion, trusting that these actions multiplied by millions of people could make a real difference in the course of the future. I also faced practical challenges. Leaving my job at the factory to follow a path more aligned with my new purpose meant going through financial difficulties. There were months when I could barely pay the bills. But strangely enough, whenever things seemed most desperate, something would happen. A temp job would come up or someone would offer me unexpected help. My relationships were also tested. Some friends walked away, unable to deal with my change in perspective. My father, although loving, often expressed concern that I was throwing my life away by leaving a stable job to pursue a spiritual path. However, as I persisted on my new path, new doors began to open. I met people who shared similar experiences or who were on their own spiritual quest journeys. These connections provided me with the support and validation I so desperately needed. A particularly meaningful moment was when I was invited to speak at a small local event about near-death experiences. I was nervous, fearing ridicule or rejection, but as I began to speak, I saw faces light up with recognition and hope. People came up to me afterwards, sharing their own stories, many of which they had never told anyone for fear of not being believed. I then realized that my journey, with all its ups and downs, its certainties and doubts, was not just for me. It was something I could use to help others, to offer comfort and hope to those who were going through difficult times or questioning the meaning of life. The doubts haven't completely disappeared. I don't think they ever will. But I learned to live with them, to see them as companions on my journey rather than obstacles. Each time I face a moment of uncertainty and choose to move forward anyway, I feel like I am honoring the most important lesson I learned from my near-death experience, that love, faith, and courage are the most powerful forces we have. And so, day after day, I continue my journey. It's not always easy, it's not always clear, but it's deeply meaningful. And in the end, that's all any of us can ask for in life. Sitting here, years after that fateful night at the lake, I can't help but marvel at the journey I've been on. The near-death experience I had wasn't just an isolated event in my life. It was a catalyst that triggered a complete transformation not just in me, but in the lives of countless people around me. Looking back, I see how each challenge, each moment of doubt, each small victory brought me to this point. The road wasn't always easy, but every step was worth it. However, I cannot ignore the weight of knowledge I carry with me. The visions of the future that the angel showed me still hover in my mind, a constant reminder that our world is on the brink of great change. I see signs of this around me every day. Global tensions are rising, climate change is accelerating, and there is a widespread sense of unrest and uncertainty. Sometimes when I read the news or watch world events unfold, I feel a shiver of recognition. Are these the first signs of that turbulent future I've been shown? But along with this apprehension, I also feel an unshakable hope. Because at the same time as I see signs of a crisis approaching, I also see signs of a great awakening. I see people from all walks of life beginning to question old paradigms, searching for deeper meaning, yearning for connection and purpose. I see a growing interest in spiritual and mindfulness practices. I see a movement towards more sustainable lifestyles in harmony with nature. I see people coming together, crossing old lines of division to work for the greater good. And I wonder, could these changes, however small they may seem now, alter the course of the future? Could it be that, through our daily choices, our acts of love and compassion, we could avoid the worst aspects of that future that I was shown and create a new path? I have no definitive answers to these questions. The future, as always, remains uncertain. But what I've learned on my journey beyond life is that every moment, every choice, matters more than we can imagine. Looking to the future, I know challenging times lie ahead. The changes our world will face will not be easy. There will be moments of fear, of confusion, of pain. But I also know that within each challenge there is an opportunity for growth, transformation, rebirth, My hope for the future is that more and more people awaken to the fundamental truth I learned on my journey beyond life, that we are all interconnected, that love is the most powerful force in the universe, and that each of us has the power to make a difference. I imagine a future where people live with a higher consciousness, where our decisions are guided not by fear or greed, but by compassion and an understanding of our essential unity. A future where we recognize that what we do to others, we do to ourselves, and where we care not just for each other, but for the entire planet we share. I know this future will not come easily. The changes we need to make, both individually and collectively, are profound and challenging. They will require us to question old beliefs, to abandon ingrained patterns of behavior, to face our deepest fears. But I also know that we are capable of this. I have seen the incredible power of the human spirit, both in my own journey and in the stories of transformation I have witnessed in others. I saw people overcome unimaginable trauma, forgive what seemed unforgivable, find strength and purpose, even in the most difficult circumstances. As I look to the future, I feel a mixture of apprehension and hope. Apprehension because I know difficult times are coming. The visions I was shown were not of an easy path. There will be challenges, there will be suffering, there will be moments when it seems like everything is lost. But I feel hope because I know we are not alone on this journey. I know there are forces greater than we can imagine working in our favor. And I know that within each of us there is a divine spark, unlimited potential for love and growth. My near-death experience taught me that life is precious, that every moment is an opportunity to make a difference. And that's what I intend to continue doing in the years to come, sharing my story, inspiring others to seek their own truth, spreading love and compassion wherever I go. I don't know exactly what the future holds for us. I don't know when or how the changes I've seen in my visions will manifest. But I know this: every act of kindness, every word of encouragement, every choice made with love and awareness is shaping that future. Sometimes when I meditate, or when I'm in moments of deep connection, I feel again that angelic presence that guided me on my journey beyond life. And always the message is the same: trust, love, be the light. And that's what I encourage everyone to do. Be the light in your own circles of influence. Spread love, even, and especially, when it's difficult. Remember that each of us is more powerful than we know, that every choice we make has the potential to change the world. The future can seem uncertain, sometimes even scary. But if there's one thing my experience has taught me, it's that there is so much more to existence than we can see or touch. There is a greater purpose at work, a divine plan unfolding in ways we cannot always understand. Our task is to trust this process, do our part to raise collective consciousness, and always remember that, in the end, love is all that truly matters. As I share these final words, I feel deep gratitude for the life given back to me that night at the lake, for the lessons I learned, for the incredible people I met on my journey. And I feel excited anticipation for what's to come. Because despite all the challenges we face, despite all the shadows that hover on the horizon, I know that we are on the threshold of something extraordinary. A new chapter in the history of humanity is about to begin. And you who are reading or listening to these words now have a role to play in this story. You are important. Your choices matter. Your love matters. So, move forward with courage and compassion. Face your fears. Open your heart. Be the change you want to see in the world. The future is in our hands. And together, guided by the love and light within each of us, we can create a world brighter than we ever imagined. This is the final lesson my journey beyond death has taught me. And that is the message I leave with you now, with gratitude, hope, and infinite love. Tomorrow awaits us. Let's go together to meet you, with open hearts and high spirits, ready to face any challenge and embrace all the wonders that the universe has in store for us. Because in the end, always remember we are all one, and love is eternal.